Okay, well, he's bringing them up right now. Denny, I don't know if you can hear us.
I can hear you, but it's you're breaking up real bad on my side. I don't know how does it sound on your side?
We hear you pretty well. Can you hear me well enough to make out what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, I sure can.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome in a very, very special guest today. Two-time Cy Young Award winner, World Series champ, last pitcher to win 30 games, and probably the last one that ever will. He had a 31-6 record in 1968. You heard me correctly, Brett. 31-6, three-time All-Star. He played 8 years with the Detroit Tigers. Let's welcome in Denny McClain. Denny, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I thank you very much for having us on the show. Thank you very much.
Hey, I just mentioned about your 30-win season, which is just incredible. Is it safe to say, Denny, that we'll never see another 30-game winner again?
Well, we got a commissioner right now that I'm not quite sure what he's trying to define. We put a man on second base in the 10th inning. We are moving bases around. We're moving an awful lot of things around, and maybe some of them don't count. The only thing that really looks like it counts right now is the fact that the games are a few seconds, few minutes quicker, which is okay. But as far as a 30-game winner, listen, unless they do a couple of things. One, they're going to either have to move the mound in, or the hitter closer to the pitcher somehow, some way. I don't see it happening unless they change. I mean, they could change balls. I don't think that would make a difference. I don't know how many more feet they want to move the walls in center field. My God, there's enough home runs to float a battleship. So I don't think we'll ever see it again. I mean, I don't think we've really seen anybody even challenge it. I know somebody said some guy had 20. One of the guys had 27 one year, but he wasn't chasing 30. He was just chasing his next win when he got into September. So that's the problem. I mean, I got to tell you something. The most important thing when you're on a streak like that, you never miss a start. You got to pitch with the injuries. You got to get your cortisone injections. You got to use your ice and your hot water. All of that becomes a part of your daily ritual. I mean, you don't do much else except get ready for the next start. And I just don't think only pitching 4 or 5 innings. A lot of these guys don't even go 5. But what a way to play. $25 million and you only got to pitch 5 innings. My God, what do I wish I can still pitch, I think. But bottom line, it's just never going to happen.
Danny, the biggest thing I wanted to ask you, talking about 1968 and, me being a big Cardinals fan, first of all, you broke my grandfather's heart that year. So thank you for that.
Nobody's perfect.
But, that entire year, you on the American League side, Bob Gibson on the National League side, you two are really the biggest reasons why the mound was lowered because of the incredible seasons that you had. What has it been like for you to see how pitching has evolved because of the way that you and Bob Gibson performed that season and the way that you two went at it in the World Series that year?
Yeah, let me start with Bob. Bob was one of the great competitors of all time, both on and off the field. I mean, when after we won the series in '68, Bob and I went on a number of TV shows. Bob was supposed to be a guitar player, and I have a degree in music and what have you. And Bob was not quite a guitar player. He would try to find the key that he wanted to play in, but nobody else knew. I always used to call it whiskey rather than key of C or D or E, whatever it might be. And the first show we ever did together was with Ed Sullivan, and we didn't even rehearse a number. And all of a sudden he goes out there and starts playing 4 chords. By the time we caught up with him, he was in 4 different keys. I mean, so it was tough, but as far as a good guy, great guy, especially after the game, he got better. Although I'll tell you one thing, Bob would still knock you down if he had a chance today. Bob is not going to let anybody stand up there and do anything without him knocking you down. That was his ritual every day. But you know what? The thing that's disappointing about the game today, gentlemen, with very few exceptions, there's very few people who know how to pitch. There's a book. While it's not written, there's a book on pitching. There's certain things you never do. 90% never do. Let me tell you what a couple of them are. Number one, you get a guy 2-0, you don't throw him a fastball. You throw him a curveball, a slider, an off-speed pitch. If you got a guy 0-2, you don't throw him a changeup, a curveball. You go get him. You throw the ball as hard as you can on the hands. And there's lots of kids who could do this. Why they don't teach these kids coming out of the minor leagues, although some don't even get there, but why they don't teach these kids what the golden rules are, I don't get it. And you know what? The number one golden rule is, I know, everybody in the world, I think, knows, it's throwing strikes on the first pitch. What a game it becomes when you throw pitches on the first pitch. The game becomes relatively easy if you've got decent stuff.
And I think, Denny, a lot of that, when you look at the game now, is due to the way that a lot of teams and a lot of coaching staffs, even in college and other levels, look at stats like spin rate and whip and all these analytical stats. I think what's been lost is just flat out going out there and attacking hitters, much like you did, much like,
right.
Bob Gibson did. If anybody bat flipped Bob Gibson, the next time they came to the plate, the pitch was going to be 103 at their rib cage.
That's the
game has changed so much. And, what we see a lot with high walk rate and high strikeout rates and spin rates on breaking balls, kids are worried about that while they're pitching, which takes away from the mindset of just trying to go out there and get people out.
Well, I've worked with a number of kids the last number of years, and I got to tell you, the most important thing I tell them, it's got nothing to do with spin rate. It's got nothing to do with exit velocity. It's got nothing to do with your fastball at 95 miles an hour. What it's got to do with is simply one thing: strikes. Throw all the other stuff out and learn how to pitch. There's people out there that can teach you. Why they don't? They're bringing these kids up too early. Everybody needs a couple of years in the minor leagues, 2-3 years, unless you're gifted in some other way, like an LK line, come right out of high school. The bottom line is you got to learn the game. And let me say this to you, for those who think that it's a fairy ride all the time. The bottom line is you play 162 games a year, and you're out there for another 30 in spring training. Gentlemen, you're on the road 12 months a year. No question about it. Almost 12 months a year. And that takes a lot out of a lot of people. And a lot of guys can't take it. There's a lot of guys. You can always know who the guys are. The guys that are really got the stuff going for themselves are the guys that win and who are consistent. Those are the guys who take the game, I think, more seriously than others.
Yeah, Denny, you had 28 complete games in 1968. You followed it with 23 complete games in 1969. Of course, we don't see that today. Why were pitchers able to go so much further in games that than they are today? And the second part of that question is, how do you, do you agree with the way they're using pitchers today?
No, I seldom agree with anything. I mean, we take guys out with a no-hitter in the seventh inning. I mean, what the hell is that all about? Don't the fans come to the ballpark to see exceptional play, we hope, every night, and then they take the guy out who's got a no-hitter going for 7 or 8 innings? I mean, listen, I think half the managers in the game today don't quite get it. I think they're trying to be entertainers rather than baseball managers. I really do. I mean, when you got to use 3 and 4 and 5 pitchers on a night to go 9 innings, I mean, something's wrong. Something is definitely wrong. Number one, they don't pitch enough. They don't pitch enough. They don't pitch enough in the minor leagues, and they don't pitch enough in spring training. God, half the time they're not even working out before the game starts. So I don't know what the answer is, but somebody's going to come along. I see where they gave our commissioner a new $150 million contract. If he's going to be the commissioner that he wants to be, then he's got to step his ass up to the plate and say, listen, let's go back and play baseball. Let's make some fine tuning. The clock, as I said, not a bad idea, but you got to be able to work with see, I think if you got this clock, I think it's fast. I mean, you got a guy 2-0 and you should be throwing him, busting his butt with a fastball around the hands. And all of a sudden the kid's throwing a changeup up there. Why? Because he doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah, and Denny, you put the nail on the head right there. I mean, yes, the pitch clock has done a great deal um for the pace of play, but the one thing that I worried about and then I've seen kind of off and on throughout the year is it'll start to rush guys. And the one
Yes,
thing we're seeing is the veteran, old fashioned guys like Adam Wainwright, who warded off retirement to come back for one more season. He has struggled mightily. What you're seeing is a lot of these young guys that have been in the minor leagues with this pitch clock, they know how to attack with it, and the vets have a hard time adapting. But even the guys that are used to it, the MO with the pitch clock is, not necessarily for them. It's kind of the same thing. They're worried about how much spin is my breaking ball getting. They're not worried about dotting the outside corner with a fastball 0-2.
right.
They're trying
That's
to strike
exactly
the guy out for highlights.
Listen, let me make it real clear here. Just because you throw a guy a good curveball doesn't mean that pitch was appropriate on that pitch. Just because you throw him a good changeup or fastball doesn't mean that was the right pitch to throw. They grab the ball now. Most of the young guys, I'm talking about young guys, 25, 26-year-olds on down, they're throwing pitches just to throw pitches because of this damn clock. And you're right. They are rushing themselves. And that's the reason why we're getting so many ding-dang pitchers behind the hitter all the time. So many walks that we're giving up. And I'll tell you something else. Because the guy doesn't want to be taken out of the game, we're giving up more home runs than ever before in the history of the game. So all of that is because right now, a great deal to do with this clock. And I say the clock is okay, but it isn't okay at the seconds now. Extend it to 20. Extend it to 25. Give them some time to think. Give them some time to sit down or talk to the catcher, call them out and a timeout for a second. But they don't want to do that. They want to get. Isn't the game more valuable than a damn clock?
Yeah, and you know what? You know what's going to really be terrible, Denny, and it's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, or the year after. But how sad is it going to be when the bases are loaded in the bottom of the ninth in Game 7 of the World Series, and the outcome of the game is decided on a pitch violation?
That's right. You see it coming already. I mean, our first game of the season, I think we had one or two, and I said, "Oh, this can't be. This just can't go any further." But you know what? Every game, every other game, every 3 games, we have somebody that either misses the clock on the mound or misses the clock in the batter's box. It's you know what? These kids are baseball players. They're not mathematicians. They don't have to look at a clock. I mean, they got to throw strikes. They got to take their time and do what they do best. Because when they were in high school and they were in college and the minor leagues, they didn't have to worry about these damn clocks. They pitched the way they were supposed to pitch. Now, all of a sudden, you come to the biggest show in the world and you got to worry about a damn clock.
Denny, I want to follow up with that. Why do you think, in your opinion, and you pitched back during an era where at least we didn't hear a lot about all these arm injuries and all these Tommy John surgeries? I mean, of course, it wasn't Tommy John surgery came later, but why do you think so many pitchers are having Tommy John surgery today and being injured?
I think the biggest reason is they just don't throw enough. I get back to that all the time. They got to throw, they got to throw, they got to throw. One of the other things, too, is, and I noticed it in the Little League this year and past years, you got managers who are supposed to be responsible. These are fathers of children who got 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds throwing curveballs. Well, let me tell you what that does to an arm at a young age. Just listen to this for just 1 second. Every time, if a guy starts throwing a lot of curveballs early, that stunts the growth of that particular individual. In other words, every time you throw a curveball, eventually that arm is going to shorten up, because to throw a good curveball, you got to throw a short arm. Remember the term short arm all the time? So the short arm is the way you throw a real good curveball. But you know what? If you keep throwing it, you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to have more Tommy Johns, excuse me, more Tommy John than you can imagine. Listen, had we had Tommy John when I played, I'd have played another 10 years, because I severed my rotator cuff. And it was unbelievable. All of a sudden, I've won 100 and some games in 4 or 5 years, and all of a sudden the next year I can't pick up a roll of toilet paper. That's how bad it was. So it's unbelievable. And every one of us, as a pitcher, we all go out the same way. We go out broken and hurt.
Hey, talk about I wanted to ask you about your teammate, and I loved him as a pitcher as well as I did you. Talk about Mickey Lolich and the type of pitcher he was for the Tigers.
Mickey was a dog. I mean, Mickey could really throw. Mickey probably had, and I really mean this without any reservation, I think he had the best stuff I ever saw for about 7-8 years. Mickey just was lazy. And I don't mean that as a condemning remark, but Mickey was lazy because Mickey wouldn't work out much. I mean, he'd come to spring training with the little pot belly, and sometimes it would grow before spring training was over. And he just didn't work out. He didn't run. Who the hell likes to run? And he didn't like to run. He didn't want to cover first base on all those drills we had to do every year. Mickey just didn't want to do that. And he just thought that it was going to be with his arm that he had, and he had a great arm. I've said this 1,000 times. Mickey Lolich, had he taken the game as seriously as some guys I know, would have won 350 games, 400 games easily. That's how unbelievable his arm was. The guy, I don't know if he ever got hurt till the I think the late 70s, early 80s. The guy could throw all day and all night and come back tomorrow if you needed him. That guy was unbelievable. He's very sick right now, we're told. So a couple of prayers will help.
Yeah. All right, last question, and then we got to let you run. I'm being told we're running out of time. I know you still follow the Tigers. I mean, What do we have to do to get this team back to where it needs to be?
Well, I would fire everybody to begin with. Listen, we got the worst baseball team I've ever seen. We got no pitching. We got one guy, Rodriguez, who is apparently going to get traded, I think maybe today, because that's what everybody wants. All of a sudden, he's made this miraculous comeback, and he really looks like Cy Young in his prime, for God's sakes, at times. None of the other guys on our team, they're all, they're not major league pitchers. Some of them are close, but most of them aren't. Our defense is subject to being changed quickly. We just got too many guys who don't belong there. And a lot of the guys that, keep this in mind, a lot of the guys that came over to our ball club, the problem is they were screwed up wherever else they were. In other words, they had their good years already. We're getting veterans that have had their good years and are not having the years like they had here or like they wanted to have here. So that's the problem. We need to go back to the farm system with our ball club and make our club produce again. Our fans are now upset too. And for Detroit fans to be upset, that's a real upset.
All right. Well, Denny, listen, I could talk to you all day long about baseball and your career because it was such a phenomenal career. But unfortunately, we're running out of time. But by both myself and Brett, want to thank you so much taking time out of your schedule to come on our MLB trade deadline show today.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for having me on. You guys have a great day and enjoy the game and stay safe. You hear?
You too, my friend.
Thanks, Denny. Appreciate it.